USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
My name is Shalliea Mitchell, and I'm from a small town called Mayo, Florida. A lot of people haven't heard of Mayo. It's kind of North Florida. I was the middle child of 3, so pretty small family. I have an older brother who is 3 years older than me. He's in a wheelchair. And then I have my younger sister. She's 3 years younger than me, and we're pretty close. So I had my 2 step siblings who joined the military prior to my service, and that inspired me to join the Army, along with my participation in ROTC in high school.
Army ROTC is an advanced course in leadership. Cadets learn Army values such as duty, honor, and courage that they will practice for a lifetime. At high schools and universities across the nation, Army ROTC starts with education first. While pursuing academic excellence, cadets are more than just students. From early morning PT sessions to Army-style competitions and school-level sports, and so much more. Army ROTC cadets, both junior and senior, have committed to a lifetime of leadership excellence.
Yeah, so ROTC prepared me for the route to go to college. So if I would have decided to go to school first, I would be able to come in as an officer, but I believe there's an incentive as far as like a pay grade advancement had I came in as an officer. However, I did get to go the enlisted route and come in as a PFC because of my experience in JROTC. I chose the Army because I had a recruiter named Sergeant C. When I was in ROTC, we were very close. Her father served in the Marine Corps, and she decided to join the Army because that was her father's recommendation. And so I was highly convinced based off of that was the route that I was gonna take, even though I initially wanted to go Marines. Basic training was a great experience. I was in Fort Jackson, and overall, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I had a pretty strict childhood, so nobody could be more strict than my mom and my dad. Sure. So I'm like, this is a piece of cake. And so I always kept my upbringing in the back of my mind of like, okay, like these are people who are trying to help me out in life, and just got to keep pushing. After basic training, I really wanted to go overseas, and everyone in my AIT class, when I was stationed in Fort Lee, for that training, got sent to Japan and Korea and all those places. And I'll never forget the day opening my orders and it said Fort Stewart, Georgia, which ironically was the very closest duty station to where my family lived. And it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. So I'm grateful for that assignment. So I was a 91 Delta generator mechanic, and that had a lot to do with my recruiter as well. And so I became a mechanic, and they stationed me at Fort Lee to train to work on generators. And I think that's when kind of everything in my life changed, because I went from being this person who was all into the girly things to now getting down to the nitty gritty and turning wrenches and doing all the hard mechanical stuff, and really kind of mingling with my male peers as an equal, you know, because the same expectation was set for me as far as the men who were working beside me at that point. And so it really kind of boosted my confidence when I'm like, I can do the same thing that they can do, you know. Yeah. Everyone kind of went off to their duty stations. Mostly everyone went overseas, but I did have 5 close connections. They were the only 5 ladies that were in my AIT class, and the class was about 30 people. So that says a lot for the few of us that were there. So we really kind of grew in our relationship, but we grew apart once we went to our individual assignments.
So tell me a little bit about Fort Stewart and how that rolls for you and what happens chronologically.
Rock of the Marne, 3rd ID for life. I was stationed there for almost 6 years, stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia for 6 years. So I did 2 enlisted contracts in Fort Stewart, Georgia, and it will forever be a part of my identity. Just saying the creed in the morning and being proud that I was in the Ford support company, Cold Steel, having that representation for so long. Most people change their duty stations every 3 years. So basically by the time that I discharged from Fort Stewart, I was kind of like grandfathered in. I saw so many people leaving, you know. I was one of the soldiers who had been there the longest. And so my company and my duty station, it really meant a lot to me. While I was in Fort Stewart, Georgia, I got there in 2012, and immediately I was put on orders to go to Kandahar, Afghanistan for deployment. And when I was deployed in Afghanistan, I was one of the only female gunners in the whole battalion. And that was a very interesting and exciting experience. It really pushed me mentally and emotionally. Again, I was just growing in my character development at that time and increasing in confidence. And well, there was a reason why they had me training on these weapon systems, and I had absolutely no clue until I got the orders and I actually got over to Afghanistan and were like, hey, if you're here, we can use you. And so we still had to carry out the mission as generator mechanics. If there's no power, there is no mission. You know, we got to provide power for all these bases. But when we have to travel, that's when you have your secondary role of being a gunner. And then you have other people who are traveling there, you know, maybe cooks or vehicle mechanics or things like that. And so I would go, once I got to the base, I would do my role as a generator mechanic. But on the way to the new base, where we were temporarily stationed to help other units, that's where I had to pull the role of gunner. So during that time, that was Operation Enduring Freedom. So I wouldn't say I was in a direct combat zone, but we were making forward operating bases at the time, and we were also doing demolition. And so some of the routes that we took during that time to kind of build different areas for us to have missions in different places were pretty dangerous. Spirituality was one of the things that definitely grounded me during that season of life. I remember one specific day when we were being briefed before going out on the route. There was EOD that had just, you know, been out on that route, and there was a fueler that had been blown up in another unit prior to us traveling in the same direction. And I'll never forget, we passed by the fueler and it was still smoking. And that's when I knew that, like, this is definitely risky. That particular route, we were coming around a cliff, and you could look down the right side and see that if someone was to drop something from up high on the left side of this cliff that we can't even see above right now, we're in pretty bad condition. So I just remember praying, and I got through the experience. Yeah. No, we did have a couple of, I think it was sniper attacks on the base where I was, but it wasn't in my unit specifically, thankfully. I'll never forget waking up in those nights and, you know, you're hearing the alarm go off and we're trying to run to the bunkers and everything like that. But again, my spirituality, my faith carried me through. And it also made me really close to the people, my battle buddies that were to the left and right of me during that time. I would honestly say they were like my brothers. They looked out for me and always made sure that I was well taken care of. Looking back, it was a fearful experience at the time. But I'm just super grateful that I had that opportunity to do that while I was deployed. Aside from my role as sergeant prior to getting out of the military, I served as the single soldier vice president over the installation for Fort Stewart. And so I was responsible for coordinating like quality of life enhancing events for single soldiers on the entire base.
The Better Opportunities for Single Soldiers program was established in 1989 to respond to the quality of life issues affecting single soldiers, who today make up approximately half of the Army. As the program developed, it became apparent that another important benefit of BOSS was the positive recreation opportunities and camaraderie it created. In 1991, the Chief of Staff of the Army officially expanded BOSS to include all aspects of service members' lives. Later, BOSS members expressed an interest in participating in community service projects. To that end, recreation and leisure, quality of life, and community service became the core components of the BOSS program.
The BOSS program, to me, means a stronger, better Army. We have got to engage leadership with the soldiers. We've got to engage soldiers in positive activities and relationships that they build. It also is a great way to mitigate risks, because you take young soldiers, you give them some responsibility, you give them a little bit of authority, and then give them enough rope to get out there and do things. There are options and opportunities for us to broaden our horizons and grow as a person. And the BOSS program contributes to developing Army values inside the soldier, inside the unit.
When you think about military service and being away from your family and things like that, like it can get pretty hard. And so I found out that there was an organization on the base specifically for single soldiers, you know, who don't have family per se or spouses per se. And so how do we keep those soldiers motivated? And so I participated as the vice president for Fort Stewart in coordinating events for us to socialize and kind of keep our morale going when we don't have family or spouses to, you know, come home to at the end of the day. It was really nice. I made sergeant in 2016. Oh. Yes. Graduated top of my warrior leadership class, served as the student first sergeant, and came out as the sergeant shortly after.
We're trying to just spotlight the fact that we want to appreciate our women in service, and just bring something to the table about your thoughts about that.
Yeah, it really warms my heart that we are getting that attention, because it does take a lot of grit and determination and hard work to show up in these roles as female soldiers and female veterans. Again, I was a completely different person as a young lady going into the military, and all the development that I went through while in service, it changed me, but it changed me for the better. And I think that we deserve recognition for all the hard work that we put in to be equal with our male peers while we're in service. Yes.
So did you have any problem with coming off of mission?
100%, yes. My discharge from the military was actually unexpected. It was a medical retirement. And I had just received a scholarship to go green to gold, but I was medically disqualified for certain reasons. And so I went from being this person who saw themselves in the military for over 20 years to, hey, you're not fit for duty anymore, and we need to have you discharged. And so I had to piece my life back together after that. Had no sense of identity whatsoever without waking up and putting on the uniform. And I have almost been out of the military as long as I was in at this point. And I'm just now getting to the point where I'm starting to feel like I have purpose and I'm starting to feel more grounded in life and have a sense of community, but it took years. Well, after service, I went to school for ministry for a bit, and then COVID happened. I really struggled with my mental health specifically because of my discharge from the military. And so my recovery just became my full-time job. Thankfully, I had my medical retirement benefits. And since then, I have specifically focused on supporting other veterans who have had those similar challenges following their discharge. And so that is my main mission, you know, to come alongside other people, specifically women who are having difficulty with those types of transitions in life.
Now, are you with a women's organization for veterans at all? Are you with
Yes, I'm with Their Voices of Hope. I've been connected with Their Voices of Hope for about a year now, and the camaraderie is number one. I seek out veteran organizations in the community, specifically with women, because it can be so isolating as a civilian. And so just being able to come alongside other women veterans who share similar experiences, and we never forget our service and, you know, that connection that we made through the military from our experiences. It's just always awesome coming together and getting to talk about those things versus just being a civilian and it's like tucking away your story, you know? So I really enjoy it.
So just a word of advice of maybe for someone who's kind of on the fence or thinking about it, joining the service, and why it's important.
I would say you never know who you can become if you don't show up to the door of opportunity. And so I knocked on the door I had the opportunity to join the service, and I had absolutely no clue the woman that I would be transformed into specifically from that service, with both positive and some negative experiences. It all worked together to make me a better person, and so you can't go wrong. Can't go wrong.